After an unimaginably long journey through the gloomy and endless samsara channel, Luo Feng finally saw a brilliant world filled with life at the far end of the passage. Standing inside the star tower, he knew that he and Morosa had at last reached the legendary land of origin. Morosa was equally excited, as both of them had long been invincible within the primordial cosmos region and had spent countless years without worthy opponents. Despite his anticipation, Luo Feng remained extremely cautious. Before entering the new world, he sternly warned Morosa never to reveal any information about being a sector beast. According to the secrets he had inherited from the Duan-Dong River lineage and from his master mountain-sitting guest, the land of origin was filled with countless terrifying existences far stronger than them. If Morosa's identity were exposed, powerful forces would relentlessly hunt them down. Morosa immediately swore loyalty, declaring that he would rather die than reveal anything about sector beasts. Luo Feng explained that death itself was not what concerned him, because both of them possessed perfect divine bodies with life levels 100,000 times greater than ordinary beings. They could revive even from a single drop of blood. Their bodies possessed countless miraculous abilities, including concealing life signatures, evading fate tracking, and transforming perfectly into other forms, even without cultivating the Duan-Dong River lineage's supreme inheritance, the undying river. Every strand of their hair or drop of blood could serve as a means of resurrection. However, Luo Feng knew that true experts of the land of origin were capable of much more than simply killing someone once. If they discovered Morosa's true identity, they could track down every remaining trace of their existence and completely erase them forever. Luo Feng then revealed some shocking truths. Throughout the endless history of the land of origin, almost every sector beast had been exterminated. The only known survivor existed within Tianmu Kingdom. Even that sector beast survived only because it had already reached the peak of its growth and because it was controlled by another powerful existence rather than freely spreading destruction. Since sector beasts embodied the path of destruction itself, any major power that discovered one would immediately attempt to eliminate it. Morosa was stunned. As a sector beast, he understood better than anyone how powerful their survival abilities were. Yet even creatures like them had almost all been wiped out. Luo Feng reminded him that possessing a master was meaningless without sufficient personal strength. Ancient beings of the land of origin could casually destroy weak cultivators with a single thought. Both of them were merely eternal true gods and insignificant compared to the true rulers of this vast world. The star tower continued flying for a long time even after they could see the end of the samsara channel. Eventually it emerged from the passage and entered the land of origin. The world before them was vast and dark. Endless land stretched into the distance beneath a sky covered by a faint mist. The samsara channel disappeared completely behind them, severing the path back. Luo Feng immediately stored away the star tower and stepped onto the ancient land together with Morosa. At this moment, Luo Feng altered his appearance. His hair became longer, dark golden horns emerged from his forehead, and his facial features changed significantly. Morosa maintained the appearance of a simple and somewhat ugly silver gray guard. Luo Feng's caution stemmed from the fact that Purple Moon Ancestor knew certain secrets about him, particularly the unprecedented size of his miniature universe when he first became a true god. Such information could attract unwanted attention from powerful experts. Although Purple Moon Ancestor himself was relatively weak by land of origin standards, Luo Feng refused to leave any opportunities for future enemies. While surveying their surroundings, Morosa suddenly looked up in astonishment. Following his gaze, Luo Feng stared into the night sky. The sight was breathtaking. Countless stars filled the heavens, scattered across unimaginable distances. Some appeared ordinary, while others radiated terrifying pressure even from across vast stretches of space. Luo Feng explained that these stars were not ordinary celestial bodies. Every single one represented the miniature universe of a cultivator. The miniature universes of true gods, void space true gods, eternal true gods, primal chaos overlords, and godly kings all existed within the depths of the night sky. The most frightening stars belonged to godly kings, whose power was so immense that even their distant miniature universes emitted overwhelming pressure. Looking at the sea of stars, Luo Feng understood the true scale of the land of origin. Each star represented a powerful cultivator. Together they revealed just how insignificant he and Morosa currently were. He also explained that if a star ever disappeared from the sky, It would signify the death of the cultivator associated with that miniature universe. Although one could determine whether a powerhouse was alive by observing the stars. Identifying which star belonged to whom was another matter entirely. Afterward, Luo Feng began examining the fundamental laws of the land of origin. He immediately sensed something astonishing. The stability of space was incomparably greater than anything he had experienced before. To test it, he generated a destructive vortex within his palm. Such power would have torn space apart in the primordial cosmos. Yet here it merely created slight ripples. Space felt like an endless ocean while his power resembled a pebble dropped upon its surface. He then compared the flow of time with a divine power incarnation he had left behind in his homeland. The result shocked him. Time flowed at vastly different rates. 1 second in the land of origin equaled 10.081 seconds in the primordial cosmos. More importantly, the laws themselves were extraordinarily clear. Back in the primordial cosmos, understanding laws was like observing distant scenery through countless layers of fog. In the land of origin, those layers had vanished completely. The laws seemed almost tangible. The law of primal chaos was especially vivid. Luo Feng immediately understood why so many powerful beings originated here. He reflected on his own cultivation journey. Even with his talent, he had spent immense ages in the primordial cosmos before finally comprehending the source of life and death and advancing to the level of an eternal true God. Part of the difficulty came from the vague perception of laws in his homeland. Another part came from the extreme challenge of comprehending the source of laws itself. Many legendary figures such as Primordial Ancestor, East Emperor Ancestor, and Purple Moon Ancestor had cultivated for countless ages yet remained only void space true gods. This demonstrated how difficult advancement truly was. When Morosa asked where they should go next, Luo Feng explained that anyone who crossed the samsara channel could emerge at any location within the vast land of origin. There was no fixed destination. Using his powerful perception, Luo Feng began scanning the surrounding region. His vision penetrated through layers of space and extended across enormous distances. He observed giant worm-like exotic beasts hidden beneath the earth, divine birds soaring through the sky, a team of 12 true gods cautiously exploring the wilderness, and a concealed flying boat moving rapidly through the darkness. One particular cultivator inside that flying boat caught Luo Feng's attention. The cultivator was named Moyu Hu, a void space true god. Inside the boat, Moyu Hu was feeling both relief and excitement. He had recently risked his life on a dangerous expedition and had finally obtained a valuable treasure. The reward was substantial enough to change the future of his family. Moyu Hu's wife had died long ago, leaving behind 3 children. Unlike many cultivators who cared little for their descendants, he deeply loved his children and devoted much of his life to their future. His greatest dream was to use this treasure to provide superior cultivation resources for them. If possible, he hoped his most talented child might even be accepted as a disciple by an eternal true God. Within the land of origin, the relationship between master and disciple was considered more important than family ties. Parents might bring children into the world on a whim, but a master who accepted a disciple would often invest tremendous effort, resources, and planning into that disciple's future. Therefore, securing a powerful teacher could completely change a cultivator's destiny, even if his children could not become disciples of an eternal true God. Moyu Hu believed this treasure would at least allow them to inherit a powerful cultivation legacy. Filled with hope, he carefully piloted his flying boat toward Huyang City. Still 10 days away, he deliberately avoided dangerous regions and concealed his aura as much as possible. Then disaster struck. Without warning, an incomparably powerful force enveloped both him and his flying boat. Moyu Hu felt as though he had been caught inside a gigantic spatial whirlpool. No matter what he did, he could not resist. The flying boat rapidly shrank as the surrounding space compressed. Like a leaf trapped within a hurricane, it was pulled deeper and deeper into the terrifying vortex. A chill ran through Moyu Hu's body. As a void space true god, he understood how terrifying this display of power was, and he could not resist even slightly. Eventually, the flying boat reached the center of the vortex and landed within an enormous palm, whose lines resembled vast rivers and valleys. Far away, Luo Feng had never moved from his original position. Through his mastery of space, he had simply compressed the region surrounding the flying boat and effortlessly captured it in his hand. Morosa watched curiously and asked why Luo Feng had seized the vessel. Looking at the tiny flying boat resting in his palm, Luo Feng calmly replied that they had just arrived in the land of origin and needed someone to ask for directions. Moyu Hu, frightened that Luo Feng might kill him for the treasure he had just obtained, immediately left his flying boat, knelt, and respectfully greeted him. Instead of showing interest in the treasure, Luo Feng asked where they were. Moyu Hu explained that this was Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture of the Yu Kingdom. Luo Feng was pleased to learn he had arrived in the Yu Kingdom rather than the neighboring Shi Kingdom. He remembered that only forces with godly kings could establish divine kingdoms. His master, mountain-sitting guest, had once founded the Jin state with only a single godly king, while Shi Kingdom possessed 3 and Yu Kingdom possessed 5. Because he had inherited the 9-volume manual, the Star Tower, the World of Jin lineage, and the Lai Yuan technique through his master, Luo Feng felt deeply indebted to him and intended to stand by his side in the future. So he preferred to avoid the rulers of Shi Kingdom while he was still weak. When Luo Feng asked about Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture, Moyu Hu explained that it contained 3 major cities, Zhujiang City, Huyang City, and Suyan City, as well as 189 ordinary cities, and that the entire prefecture belonged to the primal chaos overlord known as the Marquis of Zhujiang. Unlike eternal true gods, who could only hold important positions within a kingdom, primal chaos overlords were granted noble titles and entire prefectures as fiefs. Moyu Hu described the 3 cities in detail. Zhujiang City was the most strictly governed because the Marquis resided there. Suyan City was rich in mines and plagued by conflicts between various forces. And Huyang City, located near the border of the Yu Kingdom, attracted branches from many different nations and was the center of trade and commerce, where Moyu Hu himself lived. After considering the situation, Luo Feng decided that Huyang City was the best place for him to stay temporarily, as he did not want to cultivate under the attention of a primal chaos overlord in Zhujiang City nor become involved in the conflicts of Suyan City. Huyang City offered abundant information, resources, and trading opportunities, making it ideal for his current needs. Luo Feng ordered Moyu Hu to guide him there, and relieved that his life had been spared, Moyu Hu immediately agreed. Luo Feng then carried Morosa and Moyu Hu through space at incredible speed, wrapped in an invisible force. Moyu Hu felt the surrounding space distort as they crossed vast distances far faster than his flying boat ever could. During the journey, Moyu Hu warned that dangerous regions lay ahead, but when Luo Feng asked whether any primal chaos-level exotic beasts lived nearby, Moyu Hu explained that the entire prefecture had only one such creature, Chao Yang, which dwelled deep within Chao Yang Lake, so Luo Feng considered the route safe. Moyu Hu then warned that they could still encounter eternal true god-level exotic beasts. But Luo Feng remained unconcerned. In fact, after arriving in the land of origin with very few resources, he hoped to encounter such beasts, as their scales, bones, blood, and essence could all be sold or exchanged for valuable cultivation resources. Although Luo Feng possessed several priceless treasures, the godly king-level Star Tower, the godly king-level Blade Embryo Bloodshadow Knife, and the eternal true god-level Mechanical Flow Treasure Wu Yuya Wings, he could not sell any of them. Among the 3, the Wu Yuya Wings were currently the most useful, while the Star Tower and Bloodshadow Knife would reveal greater value as his strength continued to grow. Luo Feng also understood that the godly kings deliberately allowed exotic beasts to multiply throughout most of the land of origin, as countless cultivators hunted them for materials, making exotic beasts an important source of cultivation resources across the world. Godly king-level exotic beasts were usually kept in captivity and rarely appeared in the outside world. And if one ever emerged, nearby godly kings would quickly capture it and take it away. Luo Feng understood that while exotic beasts were a major threat to weaker true gods, they were merely living cultivation resources to truly powerful experts, and he was astonished that these creatures, despite their low intelligence, could rely on their bloodline inheritance alone to reach the godly king level, according to the information he possessed. Every godly king-level exotic beast was a treasure of heaven and earth, and the essence of their bloodlines was so valuable that even third-generation grandmasters and his teacher, mountain-sitting guest, could not obtain such treasures. Luo Feng understood that exotic beasts scattered throughout the land of origin threatened only the weak. And once a cultivator reached sufficient strength, those beasts became prey instead. The real danger came from the cultivators of the myriad clans. Across the 3,000 primordial cosmoses, countless geniuses entered samsara generation after generation, and combined with the vast native population of the land of origin and the creatures arriving from countless smaller universes. An enormous number of elites had emerged over endless years, with hidden dragons and crouching tigers everywhere. Compared to the entirety of the land of origin, the Duan-Dong River lineage was relatively weak. Even mountain-sitting guest belonged to the weaker ranks among godly kings, and the Tianmu kingdom, despite controlling a pinnacle sector beast, still could not be regarded as one of the most terrifying forces. Luo Feng knew that his current priority was to remain low profile and continuously strengthen himself, as only by becoming powerful enough would he qualify to uncover more secrets of the land of origin, and even mountain-sitting guest's vengeance could be postponed since without becoming a godly king, one simply lacked the qualifications to become involved. Meanwhile, among the countless smaller universes surrounding the primordial cosmos, Luo Feng's own miniature universe was the largest. Stretching 100 billion light-years in diameter, it continuously absorbed primal chaos currents and transformed them into divine power, nourishing Luo Feng's true god heart and allowing his divine body to grow stronger. Though having become an eternal true god only recently, his divine body had not yet reached its ultimate state. Within his miniature universe, beneath a large tree, Luo Feng sat with the primordial ancestor, both present through divine power incarnations as they shared fruit wine and discussed the land of origin. The primordial ancestor said that only after speaking with Luo Feng did he learn that the samsara channel actually led to the land of origin, and since both had already passed through samsara, they were no longer restricted from discussing such matters. Luo Feng asked where the primordial ancestor had arrived, and he explained that after reaching the land of origin, he encountered a tribe consisting of tens of thousands of creatures, nearly all adult members being true gods, while the strongest among them was only a void space true god. Fortunately, they treated him kindly and informed him that he was within the territory of the flame-wind ancient country. Luo Feng was slightly surprised, and when asked about it, he explained that every nation called a kingdom in the land of origin had been founded by a godly king. But only 2 kingdoms carried the title of ancient country, the flame-wind ancient country and the thunder ancient country, which possessed the deepest foundations, longest histories, and were universally recognized as the strongest kingdoms in existence, with no one knowing exactly when they had been established and even mountain-sitting guest lacking records of their origins. Luo Feng also spoke about hidden powers beyond the visible divine kingdoms, including mysterious existences such as Yuan, who had escaped the braided cage and from whom the Lai Yuan technique originated. Earning immense respect from ancient experts, mountain-sitting guest had speculated that such beings might also exist within the 2 ancient countries. Luo Feng warned that the land of origin contained both visible and hidden dangers, making caution essential, and when asked about his own location, he revealed he was in the Yu Kingdom, a second-tier nation, but that the distance between them was immense, with their true bodies separated by nearly half the land of origin, making a meeting impossible for now, as even an eternal true god would find such a journey too dangerous without reaching the primal chaos dominator level. The primordial ancestor agreed, and when Luo Feng asked whether he had obtained an inheritance to guide him to the eternal true god realm, he admitted he had none and would have to accumulate everything through his own efforts. Luo Feng understood this well, as most who crossed samsara arrived without guidance or inheritance, making him relatively fortunate to inherit the legacies of both the Duan-Dong River lineage and mountain-sitting guest. He then produced a memory stone, while core inheritances could not be passed on. Many others could, provided he first studied and recorded them. The inheritance he selected was 9 netherworlds, and handing the memory stone to the primordial ancestor, he explained that it contained only the first half, which he had comprehended, but was still sufficient to cultivate to the eternal true god level. The primordial ancestor's eyes lit up as he received and reviewed the inheritance, confirming it suited him extremely well. Luo Feng smiled, knowing that among the many inheritances he had reviewed during his journey, 9 netherworlds was the most suitable. Deeply moved, the primordial ancestor thanked him sincerely. Fully aware of how precious such an inheritance was after cultivating for nearly an entire reincarnation era and understanding the immense difficulty of advancing from a void space true god to an eternal true god. Even among the inhabitants of the land of origin, who possessed bloodline cultivation methods and resources such as exotic beast materials, only an extremely small fraction could become eternal true gods. Luo Feng told him that this was the greatest assistance he could currently provide. And beyond that, everything depended on the primordial ancestor himself within the flame-wind ancient country. The primordial ancestor likewise reminded Luo Feng to remain cautious within the Yu kingdom. The two exchanged smiles, though they had both reached the land of origin from the same homeland. They were now separated by half of the vast world, unable to meet and forced to continue cultivating and struggling forward on their own paths. Luo Feng, Morosa, and Moyu Hu traveled through the wilderness of the land of origin at high speed, creating powerful spatial disturbances wherever they passed. The vast wilderness was filled with dangerous exotic beasts, destructive natural disturbances, and countless hidden dangers capable of killing even true gods. However, as soon as the exotic beasts sensed the arrival of an eternal true god, they immediately became silent. Roaring beasts hid beneath the waters, flying creatures kept their distance, and entire regions fell quiet. A nearby team of true gods observed the phenomenon with envy and admiration. Recognizing that only an eternal true god would dare travel so openly through the wilderness, some dreamed of reaching that level of cultivation, while others simply hoped to earn enough wealth to reside permanently in Huyang City. Though even that required significant resources. For Moyu Hu, the journey was especially exciting. In the past, whenever he left a city, he had to carefully hide his presence and avoid danger. But now traveling openly behind an eternal true god gave him a sense of freedom he had never experienced before. Meanwhile, Luo Feng and Morosa carefully observed the land of origin itself, although they had studied intelligence reports before arriving. This was their first opportunity to personally witness the endless rivers, unimaginably tall mountains, vast lakes, and extraordinary exotic beasts that populated the land. The trio eventually approached the territory of an eternal true god-level exotic beast known as the horned serpent. Moyu Hu explained that the creature possessed extraordinary earth escape abilities and had repeatedly escaped capture despite several attempts by the armies of Huyang City. Hearing this, Luo Feng became interested. Eternal true god-level exotic beasts were extremely valuable. And since he did not wish to sell the treasures he already possessed, hunting valuable beasts represented a possible source of wealth. Luo Feng ordered Morosa to continue suppressing his true aura and maintain the appearance of a void space true god. Morosa obeyed perfectly. As a sector beast, he understood the importance of concealing his true nature after arriving in the land of origin. Although he possessed tremendous potential, he needed time to grow stronger before revealing himself. The group reduced their speed and quietly approached the horned serpent's territory. Suddenly, a gigantic golden eye appeared deep within the mountains and gazed toward them. Instantly, terrifying spatial pressure descended upon the area. Space twisted violently, and the surrounding rocks and vegetation were reduced to dust. But Luo Feng calmly used his divine power to shield both Morosa and Moyu Hu. The horned serpent then transmitted a message, asking why an eternal true god had entered its territory, rather than answering. Luo Feng accelerated directly toward the mountains. Seeing this, the horned serpent issued a challenge for Luo Feng to follow it if he could. Then instantly disappeared underground, its aura rapidly descending deeper and deeper into the earth. Luo Feng quickly realized pursuit would be pointless. The stability of the land of origin made underground travel difficult even for him. While the horned serpent's bloodline granted it exceptional mastery over earth-related laws, recognizing the futility, Luo Feng abandoned the attempt. Afterward, he reflected on the nature of exotic beasts. Although they generally possessed low intelligence, they were born with powerful bloodline talents and natural comprehension of certain laws. And some of the strongest bloodlines could eventually produce godly king-level beings. Nevertheless, most eternal true god-level exotic beasts were weaker than cultivators of the same level because cultivators possessed secret techniques, powerful weapons, and deeper understanding of the laws. As a result, such beasts usually fled rather than fight. Only a few rare individuals with exceptional bloodlines dared to confront eternal true gods directly. and those creatures were often worth many times more than ordinary exotic beasts. Abandoning the hunt, Luo Feng resumed his journey toward Huyang City. Elsewhere, deep within another mountain range, a tragic battle was unfolding. A team from 9 Banquet Tower of Huyang City had entered the wilderness merely to collect ingredients. A mission considered relatively safe. But they unexpectedly fell into a deadly ambush. Their original force of more than 100 members had been nearly wiped out, leaving only 3 void space true gods alive. The survivors desperately fought against 10 mysterious gray shadows surrounding them, pleading for mercy and explaining that they were merely gathering ingredients. But their enemies showed no compassion. Realizing death was inevitable, they prepared to fight to the end. But before they could launch their final attack, a deep voice echoed through the area. The 3 survivors instantly fell silent as their bodies and souls disintegrated completely, leaving only their weapons behind. And the 10 shadows immediately bowed respectfully toward the source of the voice. The unseen speaker, their commander, ordered them to continue guarding the region and kill every living creature that entered. When one shadow hesitantly reminded him that they had been ordered to reach Huyang City by a specific deadline and that the final day had already arrived, the commander dismissed the concern and told them to focus on their mission. The reason for such extreme secrecy lay hidden within the mountains. At the center of the concealed area grew a rare heavenly treasure known as the blue-purple blood crystal flower. The plant appeared ordinary before blooming, but once the flower opened, it released a fragrance capable of influencing souls and became impossible to hide completely. It only grew in locations where godly kings had once fought and shed blood, and its value exceeded 100.000 cosmic sands, making it an object worth risking one's life for. Guarding the flower was an eternal true god named He Duomo, who sat beside the blooming treasure with intense anticipation. The flower would remain in bloom for approximately 10 days before naturally falling, at which point it could be harvested and used in medicine. He Duomo understood that if other eternal true gods discovered the flower, they would certainly fight him for it, and even powerful forces from Huyang City might attempt to seize it. Compared to the flower's immense value, his current wealth was insignificant. His accumulated weapon treasures together were worth only around 20,000 cosmic sands. So obtaining the flower would increase his fortune many times over. Because of this, He Duomo was willing to eliminate anyone who approached the area, even though he had used numerous methods to conceal the flower's presence. He feared that passing cultivators or beasts might notice something unusual and reveal the secret. While waiting patiently, He Duomo received a transmission from Chairman Zan Yun, who questioned why he had not yet arrived in Huyang City according to the Marquise's orders. He Duomo explained that he had encountered a delay and assured the chairman that he would arrive within 10 days. And Zan Yun reluctantly accepted the explanation without reporting it. After ending the communication, He Duomo smiled. Being an eternal true god, he possessed considerable status and freedom, and minor violations of orders were usually overlooked. In his eyes, nothing was more important than obtaining the blue-purple blood crystal flower. Meanwhile, Luo Feng continued flying toward Huyang City with Morosa and Moyu Hu. Suddenly, his attention was drawn toward a distant mountain range where he sensed an enormous concealed power and detected a faint trace of blue-purple light. Luo Feng's sensory abilities vastly exceeded those of ordinary eternal true gods, possessing a perfect divine body. He could perceive and control aura with extraordinary precision, allowing him to detect details that many ancient experts would require special techniques involving causality and spacetime to uncover. After carefully observing the distant mountains, Luo Feng quickly realized that a valuable heavenly treasure was hidden there. And he also sensed that an eternal true god was concealing both the treasure and its aura. The discovery immediately interested him. In the land of origin, naturally born heavenly treasures belonged to no one until claimed, and whoever possessed sufficient strength could rightfully seize them. Recognizing that an opportunity had appeared before him, Luo Feng decisively acted. Before approaching the mysterious region, he carefully stored Moyu Hu inside the star tower to ensure his safety, then prepared to investigate the hidden treasure and the eternal true god guarding it.